Welcome to Cycle Breakers and Moneymakers, a podcast for women of color and first gen who are breaking generational cycles and glass ceilings by going places no one before them has ever gone. I'm your host, leadership coach, and eldest daughter of immigrants, Mariela de la Mora. I left a 16-year marketing career to create a multiple six-figure-a-year coaching business as a single mom. Each week, you'll learn how to build unshakable self-trust, become in demand, lead with confidence, and make more money by being more of who you are. Hello, everyone. You are really going to want to stay tuned to the conversation that I'm going to have today with Jenn Jamali on essentially everything that has to do with what we were taught about money, about what we were taught about what creates security, and a lot of what we were taught as daughters of immigrants meant being like smart and responsible and planning for our futures and a good daughter and like all of the things that in working with Jenn, I've really witnessed like her being this living embodiment of what it really means to create financial freedom. So before I properly introduce Jenn and I've been working together since the end of October 2024 in private coaching, but I knew her through my friend Erica, and Jenn had actually like coached in Erica's program in Courage Driven Latina. And so like we've just been in each other's worlds, and I've just absolutely loved everything about working with her. She's just such an inspiration and like such a warm person. I've just like adored. It's like one of those things where I'm just like, I can't believe that that this is my job, that I get to work with people like her. So I'm very excited for the conversation that we're going to have and that you all get to hear, because I think that it's really going to open your eyes in terms of like, what do I really want? What matters to me? And allowing yourself to have a different answer in this season than in past seasons. And what does it truly mean to create financial freedom and options and live a life according to your values? So Jenn is a financial empowerment coach, and she's also a former tech recruiter, and she's a first-gen wealth builder who helps women and first-gen to rewrite their money stories and to take bold action towards financial freedom. In her coaching framework, she helps clients to make more and keep more and align their finances with their values. That is very key. We're going to talk about that in the episode about aligning to your values so that they can live with more ease, more purpose, more autonomy. After navigating a ton of career transitions, she's invested in multiple properties. She self-funded her maternity leave. She's talked about that a lot on LinkedIn. Maybe we'll touch upon that today. Jenn recently made her boldest move yet. She relocated her family from Texas to Bogotá, Colombia. And in this episode, we are going to talk about how she is getting clear on her values, how she came to that decision, what was behind that decision, what made it possible for her to do that and to be able to build a life that was really rooted in connection, in nature and intentionality, and a life that really, really was truly representative of her values. And I think we need that example so that we can take the lid off of the way that we dream, and we can take the lid off of what we think security and financial freedom means. So thank you, Jenn, for being with us. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Oh my God, I am so excited. This is, yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. It's so funny how like because I know I've been there with you as you've been living this story, I've had this very like unique perspective, because when we first started working together in October, you didn't know that you would have not. I mean, tell me. I was like, what did you tell Jenn in October, who was like still working at Pinterest? Yes. And was also a coach? Like you knew that you wanted to move abroad one day. At the time, I think you were like, maybe we want to move to Spain. So it was like the seed was planted, but you didn't know that you would be recording this with me in July 1st, 2025 from Bogotá, where you had moved your family.
Yes. Wow. Like, no, it's unrecognizable. Like I came to you with like ideas, like sometime in the future, I'm going to want to leave the US, and Spain it is. It was just kind of like, I was looking at Spain and I kind of had blinders on.
Yeah.
Like, I have to make a certain amount of money before I even decide to move my family. And it just seemed like this huge mountain. And I was like, in 3 years, in 5 years, in 2 years, and I'm like, 6 months? Like, how are we going to figure this out? But we have to do this now. So I was like, oh, I got this contract role at Pinterest. I was like, okay, this is a fully remote. And I get to, this could be our ticket to Spain. And I was like, okay, like I just went along with it. And then, I started working with you, and then immediately my contract got cut.
Yeah. It's so interesting how I really find that when we set a clear intention about what we want and then we take an action that isn't in our normal wheelhouse of actions, but it's almost like you're betting on yourself, but you also aren't betting to be saved. You're betting backed by a clear intention. And I know at the beginning you were like, I'm at Pinterest now. This is great. But you were never really attached to your jobs. And part of the reason you haven't been attached is because you've created financial freedom through real estate, through investment properties, through investments, different things. So like you never put your eggs in one basket, as you would say. And that's one thing that you really advocate for First Gen, especially, is like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And so that's why you were able to be unbothered about your contract being cut at Pinterest. It was why you were able to be unbothered about being laid off, right? Was it before your maternity leave or right?
It was
like during?
Weeks.
So you were 8 weeks pregnant and then you found out you were going to be.
Yeah. And then I got laid off because it was like 2022. And so I think like layoff, and it used to be my biggest fear to get laid off. I was like, because like,
especially in that state. When I think about for someone to be not that bothered to have a layoff happen to them at a vulnerable time in their life, it directly correlates with whether you've built security for yourself in other avenues outside the workforce.
Like I got laid off and I was like, okay, cool. Like my biggest focus is not stressing out because I have a baby I'm growing in my belly. And like I personally, my mom had trauma with me when she got laid off, when pregnant with me. And so I was just like, you know what? Like I've done other things. I've saved a lot. I had a feeling my layoff was coming. So I prepared and I was able to have the pregnancy I wanted, the maternity leave I wanted. Like I started buying myself options there. And I was like, wait, I've done hard things before. So I think constantly telling myself I've done hard things before, I can figure things out, has led me to having these decisions, be able to like, you know what? I want to move abroad. Okay, maybe Spain's not the right decision right now because community is what I need to focus on. And community is what I need as like still a fairly new mom of a 2-year-old. Like that's a priority. So I just started like figuring out all these different values that I wanted to align with. And I know we'll get into that. I think like I've just ever like constantly doing hard things. And I'm like, wait, I watched my parents do hard things. My parents are both immigrants. Like my dad's from Iran, my mom's from Colombia. Like, well, they always figured things out. I'm like, but they can figure it out. And also they taught me how to figure things out.
Yeah. And it's like, if you're going to figure something out, like at least have it be something that you want versus like what you were kind of taught to want. So I wanted to ask you about, to kind of frame our conversation for the people who are listening. So like Jenn, like recently moved her family to Bogotá. She knew months ago that she wanted to move abroad. Part of this was that there were just certain things in living in Austin, Texas, where it was like, okay, you want more community. You also were kind of thinking like, you're sort of in a rut. It's almost like any of us who like live in America kind of are like, okay, we go to work, we come home, we raise our kids, like, when we're paying the bills. But it's like American culture is much more divided. It's driving culture as well. There's not a lot of like third spaces and like, there's just the different things that sometimes like we miss. And so it's like, you were already very anchored into like, what is missing and what do I want to create in this next chapter of my life back then, but you were open to the form that it was going to take. And because you had other like means, which we'll talk about in the episode, it's like you remained open to it. And I think that's important because otherwise you would have been like, okay, like I lost this Pinterest contract. I need to go ahead and get another contract. But that isn't necessarily like what you did. So I wanted to talk through like what it took for you to move your family to Colombia, like what allowed you to do that, what came up for you as far as like your own resistance, fears, guilt, and then how you worked through that. And like, what does this mean for people listening as far as like, they might be thinking like, is this it? Like me going to work, kind of waiting for the next promotion, trying to save money, like save up money for a down payment for a house, but then all your money goes to that. It's just sort of like, what is it redefining the American dream? Like, I think you're such a great example. I want people to listen and just see like your American dream or your dream can look very different than the way that it was sold to you. And it probably has to, but it also didn't come without a lot of like scary decisions and a lot of things that challenged you. So before I ask you about your journey, I wanted to start with a bigger question. And then I want to ask you about like what facilitated the move, why, what you kind of did. If there was something that first gen women, first gen daughters of immigrants, if you could help them believe or understand anything about money and financial freedom, like what would it be? Mm-hmm. Let's just talk about it. Like what do you want them to know? Because our episode is going to speak to that.
Because like, please figure out what you value and then let your money work towards that. And
give us examples of that. Like, what does that mean when we say like your values?
Yes, I know that. And like values can mean so many different things to so many different people too. Mm-hmm. But it's like, what is like the driving force for your life? Like, what are the things that make you happy? Where do you feel like really great about yourself and you're, at home in a way? Like, and home can be different for so many people. Like exactly what you were mentioning with the American dream. Like, I bought the house at 25. I had 3 investment properties before I turned 30. I was making the 6-figure career. Like I was making the 6-figure salary. I was doing all of that. And I was like, and then this still isn't it. Like I was going back to that. And then I mean, obviously the pandemic just changed everything and how you worked and how you looked at money. And that's where I dove into so many different ways of like, I bought an investment property in Florida when I didn't know anyone in Florida. I just like with my husband, this is all with my husband. And so like, I've gotten into really uncomfortable situations where those situations where like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to lose all my money. What did I just do? I just bought a house from the 1950s in Florida because I know it's growing. And then I was like, wait a minute, this isn't even in aligned with my values. I bought a house in Florida. Like what? Like I took these risks and then I was like, you know what? I didn't love that risk. Pivot and then sell that house, have an income and like make an income, make us owning the house for 3 years and like still being able to. So I've taken these different risks, but I've only been able to take these risks because I had money. I had money in the bank. I know I would figure something else out. Like I've constantly proven to myself that I've been able to figure things out. And that's just been the driving force.
What allowed you to even have your first investment property at 25? Like, what is it that, because I feel like that already means you had to do something differently than, let's say, if somebody was living at the top of their means. So they were earning a salary and they were living at the top of their means and they didn't have a savings. They wouldn't have been able to do that. So I'm like, you already had some decisions in play that allowed you to do that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, I have to say I've been a pretty good saver. I material stuff never really got me in a way. So I never spent money on material. I usually spent money on
I feel like that's a very common first gen thing though. Like I feel like we're taught to be savers.
Yes, savers, but I mean, I come from
to work. We just save it. And then you say you shouldn't spend it on anything because anything can happen. And so that's where we get stuck sometimes.
And sometimes too, I was surrounded by 2 different cultures, right? So like the hustle, I come from like a Colombian mom, hustle mom, like that woman taught me work ethic, like to the max. My mom had surgery today and like she was working like last night and like the night before all weekend. So like this work ethic, which also goes back to like how I view work. And I'm like, wait, work can't be my life. So I learned that from the first gen side too. But like specifically, I think like savers, like also like you need to look like you're successful too. And that was something I never really fell for. Like, I didn't have to have the latest car. Like, I mean, where I bought my first property at 25, what I could afford, I could only buy it in like this little tiny corner of Austin, Texas. Yeah. And I bought it when I was 25 with my husband. We were like not making very much money.
The house that you just moved out of?
Yes.
So you also got that one,
so I got that one at 25. That was the one I lived in for 8 years. And then I bought one at 2020. So like beginning of pandemic. I was like, because we had been saving for our forever home.
The Austin home that you just moved out of supposed to be your forever home?
No, it was like our starter home.
Okay.
I like these labels that we put onto these homes that we should have. Like I'm doing quotes, but like these labels that we've given are such a like testament to the American dream, but it just never felt okay to me. So like I bought that house. It was the only thing we could afford. It was very beige, carpet, like not a cute house. But my husband was like, I want to buy our first property. I don't want to keep living in an apartment. So I was like, okay, let's go buy a house with whatever we got approved. It was like, I mean, we weren't making that much money. So, but we found a house that was around the same amount that we were paying for an apartment. So we just went ahead and did that. And then we're like, okay, well, our salaries are going to keep going up. So then we can save up for the next one.
You know what it makes me think about is like allowing yourself to take the next step, even if it doesn't feel like the dream step. Because I think that like, if you were like, well, I want to buy a house, but I wanted to have all of this. And it's just like, I mean, it depends. It's kind of like, do you want to wait until your circumstances drastically change and then like meet yourself at that salary, but then like you're living at the top of your means again? Yes. Or could you just see something as a stepping stone, which you did, but you didn't know that it was going to be a stepping stone towards living in Colombia. You thought it was going to be a starter home to then like have the dream home that you're going to like stay in forever. I don't know, whatever we tell ourselves, right? That many of us saw our parents do. Like my parents bought their house and they're never going to leave it. Like, you know what I mean? They've had it since 83. And it's like, that's what we see, that it's like, oh, we're supposed to have a starter home and then like a next home. And like, but you just allowed yourself to be like, this works for us for now.
Yes.
And we know our salaries are going to go up. And so when our salaries do inevitably go up, this will actually be so much more feasible. And it's going to give us even more options versus tapping ourselves out financially. And you've talked a lot about that around like part of living with your values is like, is you tapping out maximum like financially? Like, is that in accordance to your values, or like, are there other things that you value that you want to create space for financially?
Exactly. Because you get to have that room to like think about that, you know, like what else do I want to do? How else can I use my money for the things that I want to do? But like, exactly. Like we usually don't have that example of people living within their values.
Why do you think it's hard for people to not just live within their means? And maybe this answer varies depending on your culture.
Yes. I think it just it's just ingrained to us. Like you said, about depending on the culture, like, because it could look like, am I sending money back home to my family? Am I also like wanting to look more wealthy in your way, like through material? Is that what I value? Value appearances, or do I value, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that's like what you really like and that's what makes you happy, go for it. But I was never like that. But I was always like pushed to like, ooh, you should, like, you want to go shopping at these places. And I was just like, that's not for me.
That makes sense.
It went like along with the house, because when the pandemic happened, I was like, you know what? I actually really like that I have all this room in this house. Actually, I was very embarrassed of that house, like I mentioned before. And then I was like, wait, we can figure out how to make this work for now. And instead of like increasing our lifestyle, let's figure out how to put money in different places and figure out like how, like, let's just try something. Like I heard that like investing in real estate is a good idea. By the way, since then, I've actually sold 2 of my properties. So now I have 1 investment property, which was my primary home that I just put up for rent. And like, I've already got
your Austin house that you only put up for rent because you moved to Colombia.
It's only because I moved to Colombia, which I have to mention in Colombia, like I'm not, like an opportunity came up for us to move here and not have to pay for housing, which was like an opportunity that was already there, but it wasn't in my orbit until we were already working together and I went to Colombia for the holidays.
I remember it was December and then it came up.
Yes.
But you had the intention already set. So I feel like when you have the intention clear, the opportunities will present itself because the universe needs to know what to align itself to.
Exactly. We just saw Colombia in such a different light that I was like, wait a minute. Community is something like, so through different experiences that I had, like going back to your question, like how do you even like define your value? Like I think living life, you realize what you like and what you don't like, and then putting yourself into these experiences and also having the authority to be like, you know, that's not for me. You know, this is no longer working out for me. But it's like going back to the trust piece. I think that goes along with it. And that's what like, so we went as a family to Colombia and we saw like all the love that we received from family that like, we've always had family in Colombia. Like my husband is from there. My mom is from there, but we just saw it in such a different light. And an opportunity came up that a family member had an apartment. And then we're like, wait a minute, our goal is to move abroad. There's community here. We actually like, we really need help with our, like, you know, we want to live
your daughter just turned 2 and you kind of
Yes.
think about like, you know, your experience as a parent is wildly affected by your support system. And I'm a
Yes.
huge testament to that as well. So it was like, okay, yeah, that's gonna check. You're starting to be like, okay, check, 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 but you needed to know what to check.
Exactly. Like you have to have a list that exactly like you have to start adding things to the list to have that check mark, right?
Yeah,
Check box.
Qualities or values. And it makes sense because like, how will you ever be surprised in terms of what can meet those requirements? It even makes me think about how whenever people talk about like calling in a partner, right? It's like literally for anything you want to manifest where the how is very like it's not supposed to be known to you.
Yes.
That instead of being like, oh, they need to be this age and earn this much money and have this type of job, you're like, I want them to be kind. I want them to be funny. I want them to be patient and understanding. It's like more the values and the characteristics because then you can be surprised in terms of what's going to help you meet that. And I don't think we do that with money. I think what we do with money, and this is something you shared with me, is like we'll put the dollar amount but we won't get clear on why because we just think naturally, if I have this amount saved or I'm earning this amount, somehow I'm going to be happier, but there's no requirement to meet. So like you actually either spend it if you make more or you don't give yourself what you really want because you just only were thinking in dollar amounts from a salary or a job and you weren't thinking about values. So then you totally closed yourself off to opportunities that could have helped you meet that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I even like remembered like I hit that goal and then the
money in the bank goal that you had a specific number and you hit it.
Yes. But the why for that was just to buy me more like time and opportunity, to be like, you know what? I don't need to go look for another job because my Pinterest contract got cut. I've already like, you know, so just to go back, when I had a contract role at Pinterest, that's when Mariela and I started working together. And I was really focused on like, for some reason I was like, you know what, if I make 20K from this Pinterest job, like if I can get this one savings account, like pay for all my expenses because I was really clear on what my expenses are. Like I track the shit out of it. Thanks to knowing like what's a minimum number I need to make and how much can I save depending on how much I'm getting paid. I fast tracked it and I hit dollars and then my contract. So I hit $12,000 and they like on a Friday afternoon, I was called and I was told, hey, so sorry, but we overhired contractors. And unfortunately, you were one of the last ones to sign on. So we unfortunately have to let you go, but we're so sorry. We're going to give you a severance of 1 month to be able to get of 1 month of your pay. And I was like, the companies usually hire contractors to not have to pay any sort of unemployment benefits, any sort of benefits like healthcare. Crazy.
So you weren't expecting that.
I was not, and I got like, it turned out to be like, okay. And so I hit my 20K goal. And I was just like,
this happened right before you went to Colombia? Because I remember like we worked together, you were at Pinterest, you got let go from Pinterest, then you hit the 20K savings goal. Then I think you went to Colombia and it was kind of like, let's put all of this in order to make it easier for Jen. Because I think that what happens is when you're very clear about what you want, but open as to what it will look like, the universe will start to remove barriers and make one path very, very easy. It's almost like it'll remove all the obstacles from a path you weren't even thinking about.
Exactly. Like, here's a flashlight. Here's look how great, like, you're enjoying yourself in Colombia. Like, look at the nature. And then that's where, like, we were in nature the whole, like, most of the time there. Yeah. And I was, like, noticing, I was like, this is so, like, I feel so at ease here. The calm, I feel like, and my family has a home outside of Bogotá where like you're up in the mountains. Like, is there a washer and dryer there? No. Is it? But you're up in the mountains, like, like waking up to birds. And I'm like, wait, if I can integrate this into my life and I feel so at ease and just, I'm watching my daughter like be around chickens and be around just be outside and be like having the time of like having such a great time. And I was like, wait, these are like going back to like our ancestors in the way that like, wait, I bought the house at 25, but like I feel so stuck in this very suburban neighborhood. But but what, this is part of the American dream. I bought a house. but it's still not feeling right. And I kind of want to downsize because why do we have so much room? So I went from an 1,800 square foot home to a 900 square foot apartment in Bogotá. And I was like, this is plenty for us. But because we moved to a culture that does not like live, like spend their whole day at home. Yes, exactly. Like it's a city, it's a place that you're meant to walk around. You're meant to like go get like a pan over there and then like frutica ahí, and then like you go to different tiendas, but like the convenience. And that's something living a month in Bogotá, I've noticed. I'm like, wait, what was all that convenience for? Like, because I'm so busy with my job or my business that like I have to sit in front of the computer all day.
That you need to get your groceries delivered because like you don't have time to go and do all these things. And it's just like, to pay for like the mortgage and like all the things. It's just like, do I value things being fast and simple so like I don't have to go grocery shopping, or do I value like having more space in my life to go take walks and then go buy fresh fruit and then go buy fresh fish or meat and then like go grocery shopping 2 or 3 times and like have a chat with like whoever's at the store. And you know, like it's just such a different way of being. Like when you described it to me, I was just like, this makes sense. Like when you were very clear on like you were missing community, conversations, slowness, you know, quality of life, and that like quality of life and quantity of earnings and how big your house is are not necessarily like, they're not related. But I think we tend to think that we have success because we have them in material things and like our house and our earnings.
Exactly.
But our earnings specifically from a job, which is like also something that you show your clients is like you have paths of income available to you that aren't necessarily just your salary from a job.
Like, yes, that is something that I really focus on because it just opens the more options, And like, it could be big or small, from like a high yield savings account that gives you interest versus an account that doesn't, but that just shows you more evidence, something that you really focus on in your coaching of like belief bookmarking, but specifically having that evidence, but like, I can make money here and there, but do I have to be making so much money every month because my expenses are so high? Or like, do I really need to be spending like $10 on eggs?
That's the thing is like, do you need to make more money, or do you need to change like how and where you're living? Exactly. That actually will feel like a raise. In some cases, right? Like I did this to a smaller extent when I moved from San Francisco to Oregon, and like my cost of living went down, and it just felt like less of a chokehold. And I think what happens sometimes too is that we don't ever feel successful depending on what our life costs or where we are. It's kind of like you could be working really hard and actually be conventionally successful, but because you can't hit these certain markers, or like you can rent, but you can't afford to buy a home, or like you have, you know, kind of your beat up car, but you can't get a new car, and like, or you have your house, but like your neighbors or whoever, like they get to go on like these nice vacations, but you can't afford to go on those vacations. So it's like, like it's almost like that feeling of just like, do you feel the way that you want to feel? Is the stuff helping you feel this way? Or are you setting yourself up for like a harder hamster wheel to run on because you aren't actually living according to your values?
Exactly.
Which is a lot of what
I was living for 3 weeks with my in-laws, and like we just were like, let's go get an empanada, and then let's go get some fruit for the week, because we were waiting for our appliances and stuff to get to our apartment. And I was like, I feel rich. Like I get to be outside. I get like this gorgeous weather. I'm like, this is like what rich means to me. I was stuck in a house in Austin. It was, and that was, I got to a point where I didn't really feel like putting myself out there anymore, of like going to a coffee shop, networking. I kind of felt so mentally like very stuck with all the different things because my lifestyle wasn't aligned with my values. But now I like moved, and I'm in a smaller place, but I'm moving around. I'm getting like 12,000 steps a day, which like this is without like needing a walking pad under my desk, because I'm just outside doing stuff. Like I'm like meeting with someone here, like going to get like a little pancito. Like I keep mentioning pancito because like literally every night my husband and I were like, let's go get stuff for my in-laws that live 2 blocks away from us and like go together as a family to their house and like we'll have a pastry at night. Like just like really diving into the culture with community. And I'm like, we bought this time to do that. And is it like a forever decision? I don't know. But I'm still working on my business. I'm still like I do different kinds of projects, but that weren't dependent on a place. But because I found those options, I put myself, because I'm open to that change. And like, I mean, our whole lifestyle changed when it came to the cost of living.
I'm curious with this, if I wanted to ask you, before I ask you about your journey and like what were the things that you actually had to work through that were hard in terms of allowing yourself to move to Colombia, before we dive into that, I wanted to ask you, if someone is listening and they feel like they don't know that the life that they're living is kind of like, maybe they're thinking of like, okay, the solution for me is make more money at my job, or the solution, or is just the solution to move to a cheaper city. What are some things that they can do to try on? Because it almost seems like you, number one, got clear on like what was missing for you, but then you kind of found an opportunity to try it on. I don't know that you were intending to do that, but it was almost like you tried on a different way of being and you were like, wow, I like how I feel when I'm here. If someone feels like that's sort of where they are and they feel stuck and they want to dream beyond like what their job could pay them, or what would you suggest to them to kind of start figuring out what they actually really want?
I would say like, you have to like live life and like you to be able to start feeling like trying things on. You have to like go out and travel and do stuff and, you know, and like be out there in a way, because I feel like if you're stuck and like open your mind to like a different way of being, like, I mean, there's a reason why so many, like the new American dream is to leave America.
I know. I wanted to talk about that because I feel like I've never in my life heard more people be like, where could I move if it wasn't America? Like, I don't know that I want to live here. I don't know that I want to raise my kids here. So I feel like that's also a very like relevant, like that, even though not everybody wants to, like their dream isn't necessarily to leave America. I've never heard of it being that more than now.
Yes. I mean, how many accounts have you seen on Instagram? I don't know. Maybe Instagram is like feeding them to me, but I'm like, I'm in America living in Spain. I'm an American. And so I think I just love them so much that I'm like, before I went, they just feed me all of it. But like I've never heard this much. I mean, especially being the daughter of immigrants, like America's marketing campaign has been strong. And you and I have talked about that plenty of times. Yeah.
And they sell it to you.
Like the American dream is everything. Like I moved to the place where my mom immigrated from. Like as a mom, I moved to the motherland as a mom.
Yeah. Very different options.
Yes.
Than they did. And I know there has to be a lot of like mind stuff that happens of like, wait, but like I moved to where they left, and like re-justifying that for yourself. I wanted to ask you because that lends itself into the guilt and the doubt. I wanted to ask you about that. Like what happened when you made the decision? Because I remember you telling me in December, like, oh my gosh, and we could live here and it's just so easy. And I was like, wow, watch for where things are easy and they line up with what you said you wanted, because typically you're getting the sign. And I knew there was going to be guilt because we've talked about our parents, and we've just decided like our parents are very similar.
They are.
So I was like, I understand that they're just kind of like, they're very rooted and like they kind of do the same thing. And like, you know, they've been married a really long time. And like, you know, they're like, you're a very present daughter, and like your daughter is also like part of their life and all of those things. So I already was like, okay, they're not going to understand it. You're going to feel guilty. You're going to work through that. Talk to me about, because you wouldn't have known everything that was going to happen, that was going to test your commitment to this decision without making yourself wrong. Talk to me about like what happened once you made the decision, like first gen guilt, family stuff, all the things that made you like question it or have to like reroute yourself in why you were doing it.
I think it makes sense to even mention like the different things that my family has gone through over the last year to like be able to make this decision. Just for a lot of context, we went to Colombia in December to like introduce our daughter at 18 months old to my husband is from Bogotá as well. So my husband and my mom are both from there. So I have family there. And my brother-in-law was terminally ill and he was in his last few months, and we saw him and we were just surrounded by family, and we're like, in Austin, we weren't surrounded by family at all.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 hours away, that's where my whole family is, but 2 hours away is not like down the street. And I'm originally from Houston, so that was my hometown. Like I had left my hometown 9 years before. And so we're like, we just were getting to a point where we're like, we need to be around family. Like that's something, especially like with so much going through hard things, like our eyes opened up about like, yeah, it's really important to
like the fragility of life and all of that.
Exactly.
And like just the feeling of family there.
Yes. And being a part of our daughter's life. And, I guess where I was going to go with that was like, then a big focus to our dog. He was also a big being like, well, how are we going to travel with him? Can we really move with him? And then our dog was really sick.
Reminding me how much loss you've experienced.
Yes.
Like we haven't even got into that, but you've experienced so much loss since December.
Yes.
And just traumatic events and things that were very like rocked your sense of like security and vulnerability, specifically with the people that you left.
Yes. It was like, I mean, my family was always 2 hours away. I could easily just hop in the car. But yeah, it's just like I think life. Yeah.
So it's like first your brother-in-law was terminally ill.
Then a week, and then he unfortunately passed away in February. 10 days later, we had to put my dog down.
Yeah.
Who was also terminally ill. And then just this past Saturday, my uncle passed away too. And I'm like, so these three.
And he was ill at that time too. So you kind of had different people in your family where you were like, this person's terminally ill, this person's ill. And it was just like this awareness of like, wow, like life is so fragile.
So short, so fragile. Watching people work so hard their whole life and then getting to the end. Like I hadn't gone through so much grief before. And I think that has just led me into like showing me even more what's more important in life of like who I'm like of the kind of life I want to give to my daughter and how present I am. Like so many different like whys behind so many of my decisions that I'm just like, yeah, I think it and I was able to have those options and like follow. Yeah. I wasn't like focused on like, man, I really hope I get a job somewhere like in Europe or else I can't go.
Yeah.
Or, like I
have a coaching business. It's like you have your coaching business. So part of what you really looked at was like, what are all of my financial options of where I can monetize something I already have, monetize your current property by renting it out, monetize your skill sets as a money and career coach.
Yes.
And looking at like where you have funds and where you also can lower your cost of living. It was kind of like across the board. You just made it so that there was just, you talk about like make more, keep more, but some seasons it might be like keep more is make more.
Exactly. How far can the dollar go, you know? And having those options and being opening yourself up to, because I mean, I think we just fall a lot of the times in the US, we fall into the hamster wheel of being like, okay, I guess eggs are $10. I guess now I spend $200 when I go to the grocery store for a family of two. Like, like you just, I think there's with us what we've been told, but it's the American dream. There's nothing better than this. That is something we are just so just dig it, you know, and then with all the craziness going on right now in our country, like, it's just like, what is all this for? Like,
is it truly, and it depends, because I just think like, it depends who's the audience for that.
Yeah.
And I know for like our parents, there was a different reason for them. But I think that once your aim is not survival, then you look from a different lens at what your options are and what's truly the dream for you in your family, in your life, versus what would have been their dream for you and what they knew and what their experiences were, which I know is also part of what you had to kind of explain or like work through with your own parents around moving back, which I just thought was very interesting, because I know that like guilt can be something that like holds people back from actually going after what they want, because it's either not understood or because they fear, well, is me choosing the thing that I want going to take something away from someone that I love?
Yes, exactly.
Tell me, what was that about? I mean, what did you have to work through?
I have going back to 2-year-old, it's my parents' only grandchild. They are obsessed with her. I love their relationship together. So I lived in Austin. My parents live in Houston. We were driving 2 hours, just going there for a weekend because we had to like come back to work. And the time that we were here was like really like a day and a half, because we would come here for like a birthday or something, or like seeing a friend, or it was very sporadic. Sometimes we wouldn't see the people that we wanted to see. And then I was like, you know what, if we leave and then we can come back and stay here for 2 weeks because we work remotely, we're in the same time zone. Like imagine the intentional time we'll have with our, like my family. Like it's not just like, hey, thank you for taking care of Lucy for a night, because I'm going to go, like, this is the first time I get to have like a night out with my husband. Yeah, it's a whole trip. And then I have to like plan the weekend, and so it was just a lot of things. And then I think the logical thing is, well, if you wanted community and family so bad, why didn't you just move back to Houston? Like,
because that was something you considered that too. Like, why don't you move back to where you grew up?
Exactly.
And then why didn't you do that?
Because the dream, which was something I had planted so long ago, was to leave the US and go to Spain.
And I think you also told me like it wasn't really going to hit all of the marks, because it wasn't even really going to lower your cost of living, or maybe only slightly. So it's almost like you could make that decision and hit one thing on your list or two, but there were so many other things that, and I think you not stopping there and saying like, okay, well, let me go to what's familiar and I can give myself one of the things that I want, but then I'm trading off on everything else.
Yes.
So you didn't stop there.
Yes.
Okay.
And then like, so, I mean, that whole idea of what to leave was the goal. And then I said, if I move to Houston, my cost, the cost, going back to the cost of living. Yes, exactly. All of that. It was just, it felt like I was taking a step back and going back to the familiar versus like, wait, I want a completely different experience. Yeah. I want to like live in a walkable city. I want to be around nature. I want like to grow in that way of like, putting myself in an uncomfortable position of like, I have to figure out how to, like, I now work in a whole, or like live in a whole different, like, you know, currency, and like, and just like putting myself in an uncomfortable position, not coming back to like what I'm familiar with.
What happened when you told your family that you were moving?
They said, what do you think you're doing? You have a daughter to think about. And I'm like, exactly.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I mean, we all know the craziness that we constantly hear on the news. And I know people have even criticized me for being like, Jen, don't be worried about schools in the US. Like, that's just, I mean, that like no need to be dramatic. And I'm like, dramatic is when like shootings start getting closer and closer. That's dramatic.
It's like there's actual facts to substantiate that. Like very recently, and many of them, but like,
exactly.
You know,
and I'm like,
having like a Latina daughter in the state of Texas, and like, it's just, you know, like we're not making stuff up. I think that's like where there's the contrary to like the campaign of America, where you start to be like, no, this is actually like a reason.
Yes. So countries are actually telling them that their citizens to not travel to the US because of danger. But like a lot of the times our families moved to the US because their homes were dangerous.
My parents say too, and it's not the same, or maybe it was, but I had to remember this with my parents. I was like, you haven't been back to Mexico in over 50 years. So like, it isn't what you, and then there's even like within our own communities, like where it's like, oh yeah, like back home is dangerous. And it's just like, actually statistically speaking, no, not compared to.
This was our conversation. You're literally saying our conversation.
Yes. And it's just, it's almost like having to sell, not like that you were selling it to your parents, but it's like you had to be very convicted in your reasons for doing it, knowing that they wouldn't understand fully. And so like you worked through, I just remember in coaching, like you talking to them, having conversations with them where at first they were trying to help you. It was almost under the guise of like helping you think through it. And you were very like, I understand that you don't understand. And I was like, you know, they're just going to be scared. And they're also going to be sad. And sometimes when our parents are sad, they don't know how to be sad. So they'll be concerned. And then when you realize that it's not really about their concerns, or maybe they do have the concerns, it's almost like, how do you just meet them in like, I know that you don't understand this and I love you so much. And like, I'm doing this. And like, this doesn't mean that our relationship is going to go away. Like, in fact, we're going to have more options for having a relationship together and traveling, you know, to see you and FaceTiming and all of that. And it's like the realization that there was no explanation that was going to make them be like, oh, I totally get it now. Yeah, I totally think this is the best thing for you. They were still going to be like, but we want you here. And also we don't fully understand. And like, I knew that was hard for you.
Yes.
And I want to just recognize that, because many people would have just stopped there and be like, oh, I can't do it because they don't understand.
I think still did. That's why I'm so thankful I invested in coaching while making these like huge life decisions as like a sounding board of someone not projecting their emotions and their fears onto me. And that is like, and I all their fears were totally valid from their, like you mentioned, the
from
time they from their perspective. Like they don't understand, like I'm moving and I'm cutting down the size of my housing. Like I'm not going to have a backyard anymore. And like and all the things, but I'm like, but there's parks, but like there's parks at every corner.
Retired and they can come visit you too. And so it's kind of just like finding a new way to be a family. And I think that's hard because it's like we can find a new way to be a family and still be connected with each other. And it's hard when they are used to interacting with you in a certain way. But like it really, I know it took a lot for you to like hold your vision and maybe feel guilt, but not make yourself wrong. Like that's something that I noticed and I reflected back to you because I was like, I know that it won't be easy to do this every day. But one thing I noticed that you do is you will feel the emotion, but you won't make yourself wrong. Even if for a moment you falter, but like just knowing that them not being able to understand actually makes sense for them, but that doesn't make our decision wrong. So it's so funny because I think you doing this was also a variation of when we've quit our jobs as first gen, knowing that our family and many of our friends will not understand, or things like people who have dropped out of college, like knowing that it won't understand based on what they know, but also that not being wrong, easier said than done. But I think like it's almost like the new American dream now is like the departure from it because it meets the life you actually want versus the checkbox that they've pre-designated.
Exactly.
And you did that many times where like you easily could have been like, I don't know if we can like do this, because it was pretty quick. Like you decided and then you like started to take action. You were like, oh, we're going to put the house on the market. We're going to, figure things out. And like, you did it while holding space for the grief and guilt.
Yes. I mean, I made the decision February 4th. I'm like, okay, we're going to do this. And then my parents were like, what? And my mom like hung up on me and was like, I am so upset. And my mom and I are so close. Yeah. And so the guilt was just there. And of course, but I'm like, listen, it's also like the way I value my family's opinion. I value what they like say, but I'm going to do things my own way. And like, let me show you that I will come back and I'll visit. I'll be there for my family. I'll still be there for my family. Like my mom had surgery today. My uncle passed away 2 days ago. Like I hopped on a plane and
in Houston right now with your mom.
Yeah.
And you just moved a month ago.
And that's like the beauty of like, I lowered my cost so much that like, I can't afford to jump on a plane and come visit my parents when they need me. So that's like the beauty of like, I've chosen this life. I've chosen to cut my expenses. I didn't move to Colombia because it's so much cheaper. I really don't like naming these places like that because obviously like, it's cheaper for me in dollars, but like obviously people are working there, to survive there too. Yeah. It's also like, these are the options that I've bought for myself. Like I didn't get rid of my house. I'm renting my house fully furnished to try out risk different things too. Like I'm trying out to rent out my house midterm. And so it just went live. And so I'm not like, I have these options where I can test things out. I'm not worried if it doesn't work the first month or not, because like I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I've dropped my expenses so much, so I'm able to take a little bit more risk. And see how I'm like, okay, like, and I just know I can constantly pivot because I've done hard things. And so like going back to, I feel like I always come back to the trust. And I know that's a big part of what you coach on. And I think I've been able to like get that identity of being like, I know I can figure things out and I'm not afraid to like, test out if I like living in Colombia for a year. I could always come back. I just made the decision.
That you know what this made me think about? I remember us talking about, it's so interesting, like in our coaching, how, and this is like the beautiful part about being a coach is that we sell a thing, right? Like we're like, hey, I help people with this particular outcome. But what also happens in coaching is like, we'll also bring in like accidental life experience that wasn't actually relevant to our offer, but like it just came in. Right. And so I think I was saying this as someone who moved away from my parents. Like I lived there until my daughter was 3.5. And then I moved away and she's the only grandchild and all that. And I just remember feeling tremendous guilt around, you know, just around all of that. And then also moving to England at one point to get married, and everybody was crying at my wedding because they were like, knew that they were going to lose me. Right. And I just think like knowing, that's why like when you did this and I was just like, oh, there's going to be like grief, but that doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. And so like us holding space for that. But I think that it was also that and like the not having to explain. So I just wanted to say that, but like you brought everything to every call and we're just like willing to be witnessed in it and like still moving forward in it. Whereas a lot of people might have just been like, no, now's not the right time. And you could have given yourself lots and lots of reasons that sounded very logical to not do this.
Yes.
And that is what I think is so powerful. I mean, so many things about your story, but it's just like being very clear on like, why do I want what I want? And it has to be bigger than something superficial. Otherwise, family being sick or anything like would have taken it out to be like, okay, yeah, like now's not the right time. But when you're rooted in something that's many, many reasons, it's almost like there were so many boxes ticked and you knew why you were going to do it. It was going to be very hard to shake that, which is why I think knowing your why and knowing your values is so important, because you won't be as easily swayed by circumstances or others maybe not understanding.
Like your voice gets so much louder when you just like figure out what, like, and it can constantly change. Like, I mean, that's what I'm giving myself also the permission to do is like, you know, is this the forever? Like, I think I've also let go of the whole idea of forever of when it comes to like these big decisions. Like, do I have to, am I saying I'm going to live in Colombia forever? I don't know. Am I going to live in Europe one day? Maybe. But when we just think about like the American dream of buying a house, like paying for it for 30 years, living there forever, we have a paid off house, and then we get to retire. We didn't think what we're going to do when we retire.
Company forever. That was the thing that happened with my dad. He stayed the same company. You can't do it anymore. So it's like, I think the concept now, I think this is almost like more like of a modern like realization is that forever is kind of like not true for all of the things. Like we shouldn't seek forever in everything. That like allowing yourself to live in chapters will actually help you advocate for yourself and better your situation. Cause it's like, if you were to think forever about a job, imagine what you would accept. If you were to think forever about imagine like how little you would dream, how like limited your dreams would be. If you were to think forever about a lot of things, you would stop dreaming, stop looking, stop reevaluating.
Because so I made that one decision that one time. So I was like, I guess I'm stuck with it. Like that is just a stuck energy. I feel like, I mean, and it can work out for some people. And then, but for others, if it's like, this doesn't feel right, but I put so much time into this. Now what? And it's like, now we pivot. Now we do something else. Now let's figure out our money so we can have more options and figure out what's going to work best for us in this version of life. Like I'm a mom now. Okay. Well now, like I'm not thinking about partying like I used to. Now my life is more, I do want to hang out with my in-laws. I do want to be with my parents. Like I want to do fun things and like, I want my daughter to be around for that. So like if we can have these different phases of life and chapters, like you mentioned, I think like we have the options to open it up and all of it started for me was when I took control of my money and be like, okay, wait, I do have these options. And then I know like when you get laid off and you like don't have a lot in the bank and you're like worried about finding the next job, like that could be a temporary feeling. But then once you get out of that uncomfortable spot, you can like start being like, okay, no, I never want to be in that spot again. And so what do I need to be? Like, do I make more? Do I spend less? Like that's where like typically the mirror comes out. I mean, what's really important for you?
And I know that's part of what you help your clients with as well is like help them evaluate like what options already exist that are right underneath their nose and or something that they could pretty easily start just so that they aren't putting all their eggs in one basket. So it's like we aren't taught to look at that, to just be like, well, what could serve you now immediately versus what can serve you more in terms of having options in the future, but to zoom out and look across the board. And you're able to do that because you've done that. And And I think that that isn't a thing that comes naturally if it wasn't modeled to you in your own family, because we don't have conversations about money. We don't have financial literacy. We tend to look at like, money comes from jobs and savings is in your bank account and at most a 401k. And that's it. And possibly you buy a house, but you buy a house for you and your children to live in. That's it.
Yeah. Investment property, that's dangerous.
Yes, because you can lose money. You don't want to throw it in the stock market. But then if you rent a house, my parents will still say that. But then what if you get a nightmare renter and they tear up your house and then they never move out? And like, I've heard that people will like not pay rent for a year and then you can't kick them out. I'm like, what are these nightmare stories?
You figure it out. Like I've had that. Yeah. I've had a tenant destroy one of our places.
Yeah, but it's like, but you still actually made money on the property. So like, it's things like that. This is why whenever we've talked about our parents, I was like, oh, they're so similar. Cause like my parents are living in a house now that they could easily rent out for $5,000 a month and go live somewhere cheaper. Cause they don't even like San Francisco. Like they don't go anywhere. And I'm like, your $5,000 a month for your house that's paid off could fully fund your retirement somewhere else. But they're like, I know someone's going to come and they're going to destroy it. And then what if we can't kick them out? And I was just like, y'all,
the stories, these assumptions.
Yeah, they're just like, nope, I don't want to revisit it. They're just like, yeah, maybe that's true, but I don't care. I'm not going to change. This is just me and my life. I'm just going to like be in this house forever. And I'm like, all right. But like, it's just, it has to be up to us to vet like what's a real like likely fear versus what is a big inflated fear that's stopping us from having what we really.
Exactly.
So I wanted to close. I'm like, why are we close out? There's so much here that I still want to talk to you about, but
I feel like a cat. I've lived 9 lives in the last 8 months we've been working together.
You have. That's why I said like Jenn is like unrecognizable, but you've really had to show up to those decisions. And I think that it's really just a testament to how quickly your life can change when you're committed to what you want and why you want it. I wanted to ask you, what was like one of the hardest moments and one of the proudest moments? Maybe it's the same moment, but like your hardest moment or proudest moment in this moving your family.
I think the hardest moment was saying goodbye to my uncle on the phone. Like this was last Friday. And
this was last Friday. Wow.
And I were
in Colombia taking that call and he was
like having his final breaths. And so I was just like, oh, like I'm not 2 hours away anymore. I could have been there in person for this. But that was like my proudest moment. That's a hard one. I mean, it's going back to like it's hard to put a mirror on yourself and be like, and celebrate that piece. But I mean, my proudest moment was that I made the decision and I moved in 4 months. Like we figured it out and I sold everything.
Actually did it.
Yeah, like it happened. Like it wasn't just an idea. My whole idea to move to Spain came up in like 2022. And like if you and I have ever had coffee, and I've definitely mentioned that. Like that was something I was just constantly telling people, I'm moving. I'm gonna move. I'm moving. I'm leaving the US.
That's so key. Declare it before you know how.
I was just saying that.
Manifestation, but it's also clarity.
I think I made it so normal to myself and be like, of course I'm moving. And so when I made the decision that Bogotá was going to be our place, everyone's like, of course you are.
You decided before you knew how. I think you just taught us something here.
Yes.
Which is that sometimes we don't decide until we know how. And so we never decide. And we say, now's not a good time. We kind of want to move, but we don't know. And like, we're not sure how. What you did was you decided you were going to move internationally and you told people and you didn't know how. So when the opportunity came to move to Colombia and that actually also hit your markers, you didn't then have to decide to move internationally. You had already made that decision. And that is so important. I'll mirror that with like what this made me think about was when I decided to leave my job, I decided in 2018. I decided in 2018 that I was going to leave my job because I said no to some job offers. And I said, I know that my next move is not going to be another job in corporate America. It's going to be me working for myself. I don't know how. So I said no. So when the opportunity came up to work for myself, I was like, oh, I already decided. Yeah. I didn't know what it was going to be. I just decided I wasn't going to work for somebody else as my next move. So it's so important. What do you want? Like, why do you want it? And just declare it now before you know the how. You absolutely will not know the how. You never would have known the how back then.
I do want to mention something that like was such a mindset change with working with you.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure if you remember the evil eye piece.
Yeah, I remember. Oh yeah. I remember everything. I feel like any conversation, I'm like, yep, I remember that.
Like it's just, so, I mean,
I remember sharing this with you and I just was like, yeah, whatever. And then you said like, I told my husband about this. And then I like brought that to reclamation because I was like, oh, we all have our own version of this.
Yes.
Tell us about the evil eye thing that you shared with me.
So like I've always mentioned like, like I'm moving to Spain, I'm moving abroad, I'm moving. But like, even before I started doing that, I used to be afraid to like say these kinds of things out loud because like
what you were going to do, like something you were,
if it hadn't happened yet, before I jinx it, before I put the evil eye on it, before.
This is also why you didn't want to announce that you were moving, because you decided in the beginning of February, and like in April, we were still like, okay, so like, what is this now? Yes. And I was like, you don't have to tell people, like, you don't have to tell people, but it sounds like you want to tell people, but you're not telling people. And I was like, that's fine. Tell people in your life privately. But I know part of it was this. Yes. We're sharing around like the energy of telling somebody something you're looking forward to, and like what we're taught to believe about public celebration.
Don't do it until it's happened. Something can come up and ruin the whole opportunity. Like all these, you're gonna jinx it, evil eyes, like someone's gonna have an evil feeling about it. And I was truly to the point where like sharing it is still something very new to me. So like that's what took a while, but I was out there being like, texting everyone, I'm leaving, I'm moving. I have to say goodbye to you before I go because I made the decision and it's happening. Like and then I went to you and was like, but announcing it, I feel so uncomfortable. And then you told me something that just like blew my mind when I was like, you know, like,
how did you receive it? Because I think I remember what I said, but I remember the way that you were like, this helped me think about evil eye.
It comes from like communities that are probably like, you know, in that competition or like feast or famine, you know, our ancestors that were probably like, if I tell too many people, they're going to take something away from me. When I was like, me leaving to Bogotá, the people that it's affecting is like closest is my family because they just will miss me. But I already don't live in the same country as them. I already don't live in the same city as them. Like what would be different? Like it let go of so much of those. I can't do this. I can't share on social media because something bad's going to happen. If too many people see that I'm doing this, like someone's going to ruin it. And I think that that's something that just keeps, especially our culture. It depends on the culture that you're coming from, right? But
I mean, honestly, I coach a lot of first gen and I had multiple people. Like I have a client whose family's from India. I've had like your family's from Iran and also Colombia. And it also is in Mexican culture as well, around like, don't tell people because there's going to be this like negative energy or like an aura or something about it. And I remember saying like, it made sense because it's almost like if everyone is hungry and you have a hoard, like you all of a sudden have like a lot of food at your house. You're like, well, I can't tell people because then everyone's going to want it. And then I'm going to be bad if I don't. Like, I can't have it because also me having it and other people not having it means I might get kicked out of the community because I'm no longer like one of them. So it starts to become like, it's not okay. It's not safe for you to have more or be happy if like we're bonding over our struggles. And that's why it's okay for us to share our struggles. And those are the things we bond over at the dinner table and like the comadres in the kitchen. And they're just like, oh my God, like this. And it's just like, you know, but like, it's okay for us. It's safe for us to also celebrate and to receive and to have that's another like generational pattern where you're breaking.
Yes. And take risks and not live in so much fear of what que va a decir, que van a decir que like, what, because I'm like, I'm literally not taking any
as well of like,
Yes, exactly.
Don't be too boastful.
Don't be too much. Just don't think you're all that. Like, don't go sharing that you're going to do this. So it's just like, and all these are like the invisible kind of writings that we have in our head, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, and that really broke that chain for me. And I was like, I'm going to share. I'm doing it. I mean, I'm like, I need to build my business even more in Colombia. And I think there was also that fear of like, am I going to make money for myself? Like, can I do it abroad? And I was like, if I'm doing it from my like office in my house that I'm miserable at, how am I not going to do it in a place where I'm like moving around and like so much happier? Like,
it's easier to build your business when you're not watching like so much money leave your bank account every single month.
I'm like, oh my God, seriously, what else can we cut from the groceries? Because we were spending so much money on groceries. Now we're like, let's get it. Screw it. Like, let's go to the other panaderia to get that nice fancy bread let's.
You even just told me like you and your daughter were sick recently and that like you had a doctor come to your house and you spent $30 on the visit. So I was like, you also get to like have more support and like options as well. And it's just like,
that was wild.
Yeah.
Like just calling someone and being like, hey, sorry, I don't have insurance here yet, but they're like, oh, since you don't have insurance, you'll have to pay $30. I'm like, here you go. Thank you for coming. And I appreciate my medication that you brought me. And yeah. And then the next day I'm freaking out because my daughter has a fever and won't go down. Doctor comes over. Yep. She has like swollen, like culture shock.
And also like your daughter and her daycare and the quality there and how they make them food there and it's all fresh and like all of that. It's just like, it's just so beautiful. Like I think about how I think we don't have anything to compare it to and all we've known is like American life. And I just think like, regardless of what that looks like for anybody that's like listening, like take the lid off of the way that you dream in terms of like, what are the things that actually would give you like, what does your dream life look like when it's not defined by like a certain dollar amount? It might be like, oh, I want enough money to like make whatever decisions that I want to make and not look at the price tag and like go to, you know, the grocery store and not think about that and like have money for like vacations and have like my retirement, like have it defined like that because then you'll dream differently, you know?
Exactly. You give yourself the breathing room to dream and the permission to dream.
I wanted to close out with this question and then I wanted to ask you how folks can work with you because there's something that I was thinking if anybody is like, what does this look like next? I actually am like, oh, they should join Payday Club, but I'll ask you about that. Is there anything that you want to say that we didn't talk about or I didn't ask you about that you just kind of want to leave us with? Just anything really that you want to say.
I think sometimes even moving, like I got definitely very, very different reactions when I said I was moving to Bogotá, like especially when so many people I know have migrated from there. And then I got so many of people saying, Jen, I've been thinking about doing the same thing. And those are the ones that are, I'm like, yeah, like we're all kind of feeling it. We're feeling the uneasiness being here. How could life be different with, especially like if I go back in a different circumstance of what I left and like open your mind up to like living differently. Like, do I have all the convenience anymore? No, but I'm actually totally fine with it. I really I'm enjoying my time. I'm like, open yourself up to thinking and dreaming differently. Like the way that you were taught, like, was it the way that fully aligns with you? If not, like try something else. You can always come back.
And it also sounds like for every person who doesn't understand and doesn't need to, there's also 10 people that will be inspired by you because I know once you did start sharing it and I knew it too, I was like, oh my gosh, people are going to be fascinated by this, especially in this climate, in this, you know, circumstances that we find ourselves in America, especially with the immigrant community and the Latino community, that like you did start to share it and you had people just be absolutely fascinated. And they were like, well, how? And like this, and like it's like you inspire people to think differently just through that. So for every person who doesn't understand, there's 10 people who will be inspired.
Yes. Yeah. That's the beauty of like being able to like open myself up to this. That's something I've learned a lot.
Yes. And I wanted to ask you, so here's me pitching this for you because I was like, I would say if anybody is listening and they're just like, I want to be able to talk to Jen, like, first of all, I'm sure they can like DM you and ask you questions and things, but like if somebody truly were like, I want to look at what options are available to me. I want to look at my numbers, like where am I missing something? Like where am I limiting myself? I know that you have recently will be launching Payday Club bi-weekly. So like a bi-weekly call. So tell people about Payday Club and what it's for, because I think that would be a great place for them to come and bring these questions to figure this out, because they'll also have access to your brain.
Yes, absolutely. So Payday Club is a bi-weekly like co-working that you bring whatever tasks that you've been putting off when it comes to your money. So it could be a money admin task, like updating your budget spreadsheet or sending out certain invoices, or it can be a money making task where it's like, I need to like pitch to 5 different people, or, you know, like bring some sort of task that you've been putting off when it comes to money. I will be doing certain sessions where it's like bring questions in the beginning, and then I'll also be giving time to like do that work. So we'll all get together. It's an accountability. It's like building community of everyone that's focusing on a specific task to like get that task done that you've just been putting off. So it'll be similar to Payday, like typically the first and third Friday of every month. And so definitely come by. I am starting at July.
For that.
Yes.
How can they register?
I'll have the link.
But it'll be in the show notes, actually. Never mind, you guys. It's in the show notes of this episode for you to join Payday Club. When is you're starting right now, we're recording this on July 1st. So this is starting this month in July.
So it's starting July 11th.
Okay, so July 11th, and then the next one is on the 25th?
25th, yes, 2 weeks out.
Okay, so whenever you're listening, it's bi-weekly, and I think this July was the only month where you didn't do first and third, only because First Friday landed on the 4th of July, yes. But after that, it's going to be first and third.
Yes, and I'll be testing different times out, what's working, what's not, and then I'll be testing, but this was an idea that came to me. I like launched it 2 days after I had the idea, and
I love that you did. You came with the whole thing.
I was like, I remember you were on spring break. You were like, I'm like, hey, I have this idea. I already pitched it.
I already did it.
I'm doing the second session this day. And you're like, yes. And I think that
like, I don't know. And you were like, I don't think that I needed to wait. I think I already knew that I needed to do it. And I was like, great. I was like, literally no notes. I was like, this is all I would like add to it. I was just like, this is great. So I was like, this is another reason. It was just like, I love that you were just like, nope, I don't even have a question. I'm just going to do it. And I was like, great, this makes sense. I was just like, here's what I'd be looking for. Yes. I love that. Like Payday Club is happening this month. Yes. I think that for anybody who wants to your brain, but also wants the space to be able to bring the things that they either want to get done or they may have questions about. Like, I think it's such a good space to be able to like sign up, come and bring your things, because a big part of figuring out like what is next for you is becoming intimately familiar with like where you are. Right. So
absolutely.
And in addition to that, how do you work with clients, and how, like, what does that look like, and how can they get in touch with you about that?
Yes, I do offer one-on-one coaching. So it is 6 months of biweekly calls, typically 2 calls a month. And we talk, and then we also have messaging access to each other. And we are just there to talk through like the biggest goals that you're focused on when it comes to your money, debt repayment. It could be saving up, or it could be like, what the hell do I do with my money? And that is something that where I've seen my clients be like, by the end of it, they're like, I just created this new income stream and it's going to go towards my debt here, or it's going to go towards my emergency fund. So like, that's where I get clients to, is really focused on like, what the hell am I doing to like already making a decision and being proactive with your money? Because once you have that control, like you can't control if you get laid off. You can't control if, like you lose a specific client, but what you can control is like what you're doing right now with that money. And that's how like the options start coming. And like, I think that's how you energetically open yourself to opportunities too.
Yes. Which is essentially like an outcome of that would be like, they feel a lot less bothered or attached to any one thing that can pull the rug out from underneath them or limit them, because you really help them look across the board at like, what are all of their options? What is it that they truly want? What do they value? What are all the different forms that can come in? Like, what are all of the ways either that you can reduce expenses or monetize things that you already have? And then really know, okay, I'm actually planning towards that. Cause I think when you don't have a plan and like every month your money isn't doing that job, you feel like it's out of your hands. I love that. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Jen, for just sharing all of this. Like I'm grateful that you're sharing all of this, like while it's still very raw, like you're only a month into living in Colombia, you're, in Houston now, but like, I really wanted to capture this now because I've been so inspired, like in being witness to your story, in us working together. And I just know like, especially now, people want hope that can look very different than maybe what they expected. And you being this representation of that, I think is going to just really help people, like I said, think differently and dream differently about what financial freedom looks like and like what quality of life looks like and just all of that. So
thank you so much. No, like the other day you were like, man, like you've gone through a lot of loss and like you've just gone through a lot of craziness. And I was like, I'm so thankful that I kind of, this was my armor. This was like what the tools I had in my tool belt. And I'm so thankful I invested in coaching at that specific time. And it just has made my whole identity shift and to be able to do hard things and like having that trust. So I thank you so much. And I appreciate your, you giving me this platform, all the reflections. Like, I think that that's something that's been just huge. And I've seen my investment move like 10 feet. So
I appreciate that. Even when you said like, oh, you reflect back, like everything. It's like, I didn't realize I do that, but you were like, oh, you'll leave me a message. And I'm like, oh yeah. And this makes sense. And I just like reflect, because it's like how we experience ourselves and how we rewire ourselves to make different decisions that like challenge our sense of safety and like, you know, and you were doing so much of that it's like you actually needed something to help set you up for that. Otherwise, like left to our own devices, natural momentum is to bring us back to the familiar. So
exactly. And like wanting to hide and be like, this is too much. Like I can't take any more risks. And I'm like, yup, like then we move on, then we do the next one, then we do the next one, but also still giving myself that time to grieve and be like, I'm a human being. I can have both and the duality, like we were talking before, like the duality is everything. Like there's a bad thing, there's also a good thing. There's also, like you can't have both. You can't have just one. I think there's an accepting that.
Scary and out of the ordinary for you is going to have duality. It's never going to just be like, this is great. No challenges, no doubts. Everything worked out great. Like there's always going to be duality. That's why it's a big growth move and a big identity move because of that. And you were just such an example of that. So
thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you all for listening. Have a look at the show notes, get in touch with Jen, send her a message, send us a message on anything that resonated, DM her, join Payday Club, work with her, all of it. So thank you again, Jen.
Thank you so much, Mariela.